Well, BP executives told members of Congress that if that doesn't come through the dome, the leak could get much worse. Massachusetts Congressman Edward Markey is chairman of the House Energy and Environment Subcommittee. He was briefed by BP execs yesterday. And Congressman, from reading news accounts of this meeting, it does not sound like you came away very impressed with these executives.
Well, obviously, they have been underestimating the magnitude of this problem right from the very beginning. Hopefully, the strategies which they have begun to put in place will begin to work, but otherwise, there are catastrophic consequences which they told us could happen, upwards of 40 to 60,000 barrels a day of oil leaking into the Gulf.
And Congressman Markey, what do you think of how BP has conducted itself? In particular, I'm thinking about a situation in Alabama where the Attorney General apparently had to tell the company to stop offering residents there $5,000 to sign settlement agreements that would essentially give away their right to sue. Do you think that's appropriate, and is Congress going to do anything about that?
No, it's not appropriate. These people are victims. They should not be victimized again by being asked to waive their rights. I think that what's going on here is a continuation of the mentality that this accident could never have occurred. Boosterism leads to complacency, and complacency leads to catastrophe. This kind of boosterism still exists, I'm afraid. And unless BP completely changes the way in which it thinks so that it can respond with the billions of dollars ultimately that are going to be needed in order to compensate all of the residents, in order to clean up the problem completely, then we're going to continue to see this kind of friction between the residents and BP.
And Congressman Markey, before I let you go, I know you have to run to a meeting. What do you think of the federal government's response? You know, the Obama administration has been making a point to say it has been overseeing and directing the response since day one. Are you satisfied with that response?
Well, yes, I am. I think that the Obama administration was obviously dependent upon BP in the early days when they said that there would only be 1,000 barrels of oil leaking per day. And then BP changed and said it would be 5,000. And with it, a concomitant response was, in fact, put in place by the Obama administration. So BP has been in control of all of this information. And ultimately, when the investigation is completed, we will have to have answered the question, what did BP know and when did they know it? Why did they ever believe that an accident like this could not have happened? And secondly, when it did happen, why did they lowball it for such a long period of time when it's obvious now that this was a catastrophic event? So I think the Obama administration was acting properly. The focus is going to be on BP and this kind of assurance that they were giving to everyone that there were no problems. Obviously, just the opposite was the case.
And do you think new offshore drilling is dead on arrival on Capitol Hill now?
I think that what we will have to do is to put in place the kinds of safeguards, protections that occurred after the 3 Mile Island incident back in 1979. A blue ribbon panel was put in place, led by the president of Dartmouth, John Kemeny. When those recommendations were made with regard to what the safeguards had to be in any new nuclear power plant construction, I think confidence was rebuilt in that industry. I think the same thing is going to have to happen here. You know, Mark Twain used to say that a cat that's been burnt on a hot stove won't get on a hot stove again, but it won't get on a cold one either. And so there's going to have to be a lot of assurances given to people that this industry is going to be maintaining the most modern levels of safety protections that the industry can possibly put into place in order to ensure that we won't see a recurrence of this ever again on American shores.
All right, Congressman Ed Markey, thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.